It might die. Hold on, let's see if I can do something to save the battery. Maybe I can turn the brightness on my screen. Sometimes that helps. But it's my Dragon Age shirt. It's probably backwards on your screen. It says enchantment? Enchantment. But I am so behind on reading to you. But I've had some pretty rough turn of events, and I was like, you know what makes me happy? Sharing this story. So we're gonna do chapter 6 if we can. Now if this dies, we'll do a part 2 from wherever it died. But if we jump right in, maybe we can finish it, right? So I don't know if you remember the last things that have happened. It's been a while since we've been here. So we realized that, I was going to say Harvey, but that's the guy from the last book. It's written in first person, so his name is I. Well, our protagonist. Just found out that the bees, Steve, just found out that the bees were making a copy of his sick brother and that they were going to take his brother away, and now there's this baby being grown in a bee's nest on the side of their house, and he caught one of the bees, and his babysitter, who's a science student, that's my phone telling me I was going to die, took one of them to school with her in the entomology department. That's who studies bugs. Entomology, the study of bugs. And they were like, whoa, what a weird wasp. We don't know what this little white wasp is. And I think that's where we are. So, chapter 6, which, like, just a reminder, each chapter has as many wasps as there are chapters. So I wonder what it's going to look like up in the high numbers. The big ladder was in the garage. Dad used it to clean out the gutters in the fall. It was pretty light, and I didn't have much trouble carrying it around to the side of the house. I unfolded it and noticed the safety hinges. I unlatched them. I climbed up only once before, and that was with Dad standing at the bottom, holding on. I bumped it along the wall, so it was right underneath the nest, and it didn't reach all the way. There was still a big gap, and that's why I had the broom. I figured that from the top of the ladder I would be able to reach up and knock off the nest. It would fall and smash to the ground, and all of the wasps would swarm out, but I would go down the ladder as soon as possible and pelt inside. I had my EpiPen in my pocket, just in case, because we learned in chapter 1 that he's allergic. I was home alone. Vanessa had taken Nicole and the baby down the street for ice cream and then to the park. I said that I was staying home to read. I'd been home a lot this summer. We hadn't planned a vacation because of the baby, and my day camp didn't start until August. Brendan and Sanjay were both away someplace or other. I started up the ladder. After a few rungs, I felt the legs shift a little, but it was pretty stable. It was funny. I was afraid of a lot of things, but heights wasn't one of them. Even though I had scary dreams where I was straddled on top of a skinny pole on razor-thin ledges, I liked climbing trees and going up glass elevators and standing on see-through floors at the CN Tower. I wore a long-sleeved shirt with a hoodie over it, and the hood pulled tight, leaving only a small circle for my eyes and nose. As I went higher, the ladder clicked and creaked. With my left hand, I felt With my left hand, I held tight to the side, and with my right hand, I gripped the broom. I was aware of the wasp flying out overhead, to and from the nest. With every rung, I got angrier. My parents couldn't even deal with the nest. I was allergic, but they're too busy. They were busy with the baby, and would be busy for the rest of our lives, so I had to do it. I didn't know if these wasps were really the ones from my dreams, but I wanted them out of my house. I wanted them out of my dreams, and that nest was coming down. I didn't go all the way to the top. I stayed 2 rungs down, so I had something to hold on to. With the broom, I reached as high as I could, and I still couldn't come anywhere near the nest. I mounted another rung. Now I had to reach down to hold on to the top of the ladder. The broom came closer, the bristles just shy of the nests underneath. I knew I didn't have long. More wasps were gyrating now around the nest. I was just off to the right of the baby's window, and there was a stone sill that stuck out a little bit, so I took a hold of it with my left hand. I stepped on to the top rung. The ladder swayed and then settled down. My chest leaned against the brick wall, and I felt my jerky heartbeats, but it made me feel safer, something solid against me. Tilting my face up, I slowly raised the broom, straining for the nest. I didn't know how strong a swing I would need to be able to give, and I didn't know how strong a swing I could give it without losing my grip or my balance. First swing, and the bristles gently raked the bottom of the nest. The broom kept going. Grunting, I brought it back and tried again. I hit it a little harder this time and saw some papery bits waft down. The wasp came. In a sudden rush, they dropped from the bottom of the nest and swarmed around the bristles of the broom. I gripped the very tip of the handle and was preparing to give it a big upward shove when suddenly I was aware of a single wasp on my left hand, then a second on the knuckles of my right. I froze. Another landed on the little exposed circle of my face. I felt its tiny legs, the flex of its solid body. I didn't yell. I couldn't. All my instincts to swat and flail about had somehow been paralyzed. I was terrified that they would sting, but they didn't. They just stayed put. They were all over the broom now, crawling toward me. I let the broom drop. It clattered down the side of the ladder. The wasp swirled and landed on me more and more, my clothes, my hands, my face, just standing very still. I wanted to reach for the EpiPen in my pocket, but I was afraid the wasp on my hand would sting me if I moved. The ones on my face were blurry blots in my vision, but I knew they were there, motionless, their antennae prickled attentively, watching me with their compound eyes, smelling me. I took a downward step. Some of the wasp left my hands. I took another step. A few launched themselves from my forehead, and step by step more of them left. By the time my feet touched the ground, there wasn't a single one on me. I looked up and saw the last of them disappear inside the nest. Oh, one of those really cool drawings. It's the ladder, and there's his feet, and there's the broom that he dropped. A neighbor had seen me on the ladder and called my parents. "Who was it?" I asked my mom and dad, confronting me after dinner. I tried to be really careful and make sure that no one was around in their backyards. "Their English wasn't good," Dad said, shrugging. "I don't know." "But that's not what's important," Mom said with her forced patience. "We were down in the kitchen. Nicole was already in bed. What made you do something so dangerous?" I felt myself dig in. "I was careful. I want the nest down. What's the big deal?" "For starters, you're allergic," Mom said. "I had my EpiPen," I murmured. "You get stung enough times, and that's not going to help," Dad said. "Well, maybe if I got some of those desensitizing shots," I told him. "We're a little busy around here, buddy," Dad said, and I could tell by the look in his eyes that he was getting angry, and Mom put a hand on his arm. "Yeah, well, I'm allergic," I said, "and no one seems to care about that." "We do care," Mom began. "Just stay inside and we'll take care of it." "You don't climb that ladder," Dad said. "Okay, what if one gets in the house?" I demanded. "What if I get stung that way? What if the baby gets stung?" They didn't say anything for a few seconds, but Dad's eyes were fierce. "You could have fallen," Mom said. "You could have really, really hurt yourself." "We'll take care of the nest," Dad said. Mom came toward me and tried to hug me, but I shrugged her off. "What's going on, Stephen?" she asked softly. "Tell us what's up." I turned away from her because I could feel my throat aching, and I didn't want to cry. I looked at the wall, at the print and its brushed silver metal frame. I felt all the words swelling up inside me, and I didn't want them inside me anymore. I told Mom and Dad about my dreams, all the conversations with the angels who'd turned out to be wasp. I sat on the kitchen chair and stared at the floor, partly so that I could concentrate and not forget anything, and partly because I was afraid to see my parents' faces. I told them how the Queen had said she was going to replace our baby with a new one growing in the nest, a healthy baby, and how I didn't really think the dream was real, not really, but I was sick of hearing from her and I just want them all gone. Neither of them interrupted me, and when I finally looked up, I wished I hadn't. My dad's chest was moving in and out slowly and deeply. Mom was crying, tears running down her cheek, and then her face was all crumpled and she was sobbing. Dad went to put his arms around her and whispered something into her ear. "It's too much," she said. "I just can't." I sat rigidly, wishing that I hadn't told them at all, wishing I could take it back. Mom wiped her eyes and reached for me, and this time I let her hug me, just so I didn't have to see her face. "I know this has been a really hard time, and I'm sorry if we haven't been around much." "It's okay, it's not your fault, or anybody's." "Do you want to go talk to Dr. Brown?" Dad asked. I chewed my lip. Quietly, I said, "What if it is true?" "You've always had pretty intense dreams," Dad said. "I know, but Vanessa said those wasps weren't even normal." "Well, that may be," said Dad, and he sounded like he was getting angry again, "but that doesn't mean a thing. Stephen, I'm going to have a word with her. If she's encouraging this..." "She hasn't," I said. "Don't be mad at her." I didn't want to talk anymore because I saw the fear in their eyes, and that made me afraid. Someone once told me that if you worried you were crazy, it meant you weren't crazy. But crazy people apparently had no idea they were crazy, and they thought it was normal, walking around naked and yodeling. I thought I'd told my dreams out loud. I would know how insane they sounded, but I remembered everything from those dreams, and they just seemed too real. Dad took a breath and tried to sound casual. "Maybe you should talk about this with Dr. Brown." "You think I'm crazy again?" I said, and this time I was crying. Mom squeezed me hard. "You were never crazy. You were anxious, like a lot of people, like a lot of kids. And you're so imaginative and sensitive and wonderful." She kissed the top of my head. "So wonderful." I felt tired suddenly in her arms. "I'll go talk to Dr. Brown," I sighed. "But I want you guys to get rid of that nest.